Chapter 581 Task Force Rose's Intel. The subordinate explained, General Valez, Caspian is known as the Diatoranian God of War. He's the leader among the 5 God of Wars. It's said that he has never lost a single battle whenever he leads his troops to war. Diatoranian God of War. My ass. Then I'd also be considered an undefeated God of War. No? Just watch. I'll definitely take him down, Robert arrogantly declared. That's right. General Valez is also really powerful. Now that Caspian has come to Southlake City, we can send out our troops to attack him, Robert explained. It'll be hard for us to launch the attack as Caspian has brought his armored battalion along with him. We'll have to wait for him to appear. Caspian and his troops arrived at Southlake City within 2 hours. Caspian then led the armored battalion back to the Riverside Villa. He wasn't in a hurry to find Robert just yet. He wanted to wait for Task Force Rose to return with more intel after investigating Robert's current situation. Laina had immediately begun her mission to investigate the current situation of the Hudson family after receiving Caspian's orders. Caspian also decided not to order the armored battalion to move out and provide support to the battlefield within Southlake City. That was because the armored battalion had another very important mission to complete that was of even higher priority. They would serve as a blockade outside the Hudson residence to prevent reinforcements from getting inside. The armored battalion would be a major factor in whether Caspian and Macy could defeat Robert within the Hudson residence and make it out in one piece. The armored battalion had followed Caspian all the way to fight in West Aridlands and then followed him back to Southlake City right after. They didn't get any rest throughout the whole ordeal. They were finally given an opportunity to rest for a night. Willow's and Zoe's moods had gotten much better after returning to Riverside Villa. They very much preferred to stay in the house they had gotten used to living in, rather than staying in an unfamiliar place like Garthram. I'm gonna sleep alone tonight, Willow. You don't have to be with me, Zoe explained. Why the sudden change of mind? Willow asked. It's been some time since you and Caspian got to see each other. The two of you should enjoy each other's company instead. Zoe didn't want to tag along as a third wheel. She would feel guilty if she got in the way of the couple from creating a new life. Alright, thank you, Zoe. Willow didn't refuse her offer. She also wanted to spend time alone with Caspian. But she wouldn't have refused Zoe's request to sleep together if she asked. You don't have to thank me. Alright now, the two of you should get on with forming a family already, and that means no rubber, Zoe explained before turning to leave. Zoe saw that Caspian was sitting on the couch by himself when she walked past the living room. She deliberately stopped her steps and said, Mr. God of War, I'm not sleeping with Willow tonight. Why not? Did something happen between you two? Caspian asked. Caspian thought that Zoe would always stick with Willow whenever she could. He was surprised that she had willingly stepped away from hogging Willow to herself tonight. Nothing happened between us. I just don't want to delay the two of you lovebirds any further. Zoe smiled and replied before returning to her room. Caspian was shocked by how cunning Zoe had become. Unfortunately, he was not in the mood for such activities right now. Southlake City was facing a crisis while soldiers were defending it with their lives on the line. It was not the time and place for him to be enjoying the vices in life. Caspian wasn't exactly taking a rest after he returned home as plenty of subordinates came over to report to him about the latest information. He couldn't sleep with Willow even if he wanted to as there was still official business he needed to attend to. Suddenly, an officer ran up to make a report. Lord Caspian, Laina Barnes of Task Force Rose is looking for you. Caspian took the satellite phone and asked, This is Caspian. How's your investigation? We finished the investigation, Lord Caspian, Laina answered. Tell me about how Alicia and Henry were caught. The Hudsons had long been planning to commit treason, and Alicia was unwilling to join the Hudsons in defecting to Vedesia, and so, the Hudsons decided to lock her up in a room. When our enemies entered Southlake City, it was the Hudsons who set up a banquet for Robert, Laina explained. What happened next? Caspian asked. Alicia tried to scream for help the entire time. Robert soon learned that Alicia was Lady Willow's sister and decided to toy with her with the purpose of angering you. Richard even announced that he would divorce Alicia on the spot and offered her to Robert instead. Bastards. All of them. How could Richard even think of doing something like this? What about Henry? Why did they catch him too? Henry was persuaded by Richard and Nicholas to defect to Vedesia together. So, Henry had wanted to betray Diatoran since the start. Caspian was furious. That's right. He had tried to convince the rest of the stewards as well, but everyone else didn't agree with betraying Diatoran and decided to leave Southlake City. Then shouldn't Henry have followed them and left Southlake City? Why would he be in the Hudson residence? The Stewarts were extremely against it, but Henry was determined to defect to Vidasia. He came up with an excuse of visiting Alicia and stayed at the Hudson residence to join them in defecting to Vidasia. So, Henry truly wants to work for our enemies. Why did Robert beat him up so badly? Then, Caspian was still puzzled. The matter was more complicated than it seemed to be. Alicia was being taught a lesson by Robert's men, and Henry wanted to save her, which angered Robert. That was why Robert decided to beat him up. Henry doesn't deserve any sympathy from us after he tried to betray our country. I won't care even if he does die, Caspian explained. He hated people like Henry the most, who tried to sell out his own country and defect to another. Caspian continued. Henry and his friends have long wanted to defect to Vidasia. Why did you only find out about this now? What has Task Force Rose been doing? Lord Caspian, my team doesn't have much manpower to begin with, and we've been busy with all sorts of missions. We didn't manage to notice that they've been planning to defect to Vidasia until now. Laina sheepishly answered. It's fine. I understand your team has been busy recently. I won't blame you for this. Thank you, Lord Caspian. Laina quietly let out a sigh of relief. Any updates on the troops Robert has stationed around the Hudson residence? Caspian asked. This was the most important information of all. Caspian could only decide on his next move after learning about his enemy's current actions. We've thoroughly investigated the enemy troops. They seem to be on extremely high alert, and we never managed to find any weaknesses in their formation. I still need more time. This matter is of utmost importance, and will greatly affect our next move. Resume your investigation at once, Caspian ordered. Yes, sir. Chapter 582, The Power of the Armored Battalion. Another call came in right after Caspian hung up his call with Laina. Lord Caspian! Sylvia's panicking voice came from the other side. What happened, Sylvia? Bad news. Lord Caspian. The enemy is sending even more troops to attack Southlake Hospital. How big is their army? Caspian remained calm. Around 20,000. Are you already at your wits' end just to deal with such a number? Lord Caspian, I've already lost most of my forces defending the coastline. We then fought the enemy again on the streets when we were retreating back to Southlake City. L only have 7,000 men right now, and they haven't slept since the war began. We're all tired and hungry. Our troops' morale is very low, Sylvia explained. I understand. I'm sending over 10,000 of my armored soldiers as reinforcement. We can't afford to lose the hospital. Thank you, Lord Caspian. Caspian hung up and left the house to issue his orders. He diverted a portion of his armored soldiers to head for Southlake Hospital. Caspian had wanted to let his men have a proper rest, but he had no choice but to send them out once more due to the urgency of defending Southlake Hospital. The remaining 50,000 of his armored soldiers would remain on standby. Caspian finished giving his orders and returned to the house. Meanwhile, Willow had been waiting for Caspian in the bedroom. She waited for a very long time, but Caspian never appeared. Willow couldn't wait any longer and decided to take a look at the living room. You're still awake, Willow? Caspian asked as he noticed her arrival. Why aren't you coming to sleep? It's been such a long time since we could be with each other, Willow complained. The battle in Southlake City is still ongoing. I need to be here to command my troops. Oh, I see. But you shouldn't stay up all night and tire yourself out. The battlefront needs my attention and command more than ever. LL stay with you. Willow realized that she wouldn't be having any action with Caspian tonight. She understood that Caspian had to be around as the chief commander to handle the battle going on in Southlake City. As Lady Willow, she had to be aware of his troubles as well. She wasn't in much of a hurry right now anyway. It's fine. You should go back to sleep. Caspian didn't want Willow to stay beside him. First of all, he wanted her to get some sleep. And second of all, he felt that he couldn't do his job well with Willow around. No way. I want to be with you. Willow remained stubborn. You're going to affect my work. Caspian had always listened to Willow's demands for everything in life, but he wouldn't tolerate anyone distracting him in the matter of warfare. All right, I'll make you a pot of tea before going back to sleep. Don't tire yourself too much, okay? Willow understood that Caspian was busy and quickly excused herself. Thank you, honey. Caspian smiled. Oh, you don't have to thank me for this. Willow smiled back at him. Meanwhile, at Southlake Hospital, Sylvia led her troops in a fight to the death with the enemy. Joey was also fighting the enemy with her own men. The enemy troops were far bigger in numbers, and they were also well equipped with more advanced weaponry. Sylvia and Joey were no match for them. Are reinforcements coming? Joey asked. Lord Caspian said that he's sending the armored soldiers as reinforcements. They should be here soon. How many people is Caspian sending? Around 10,000 soldiers. Just 10,000? But our enemy has 20,000 men. Will the armored battalion be able to fight back against them? Joey asked. The armored battalion is Lord Caspian's private army that he personally trained. They've not suffered a single defeat. Are they really that powerful? Joey was suspicious. Of course. You'll know once the armored battalion arrives, Sylvia explained before jumping back into the heat of battle. She then rushed toward the doctors and nurses of the hospital while explaining, "Calm down, everyone. Just focus on treating the wounded. Our reinforcements will be arriving soon." The hospital was filled with wounded combatants. Sylvia was panicking, but she had to eliminate the enemy if she wanted to defend the hospital. Alright, listen, everyone, stay calm and just continue what we're doing while we wait for reinforcements, the hospital's director announced. The doctors and nurses in the hospital steeled themselves and continued working without thinking of running away. Sylvia's forces were both smaller and exhausted compared to the enemy. Just when it looked like the situation was dire, a sudden thunderous explosion rang out from around the hospital. Even the boisterous enemy troops froze from the sudden noise. They quickly realized that reinforcements had arrived. Along with that were countless tanks and ATVs transporting the troops. The reinforcements immediately joined the battle as they arrived at the hospital. Countless screams covered the entire battlefield. The enemy troops surrounding the hospital were immediately dealt with without a chance to retaliate. Sylvia felt that her hope was rekindled as the reinforcements had arrived. It was because the reinforcements were none other than the armored battalion themselves. The armored battalion is here. Come, my brothers, it's time to give them hell. Sylvia waved her hands and shouted. Her men were similarly excited as they noticed the armored battalion's arrival. Even Joey became fired up as reinforcements had finally arrived. Meanwhile, in the Hudson residence, Robert had been staying in the room without catching a wink of sleep all night. He learned that Caspian had returned to Southlake City and wanted a fight to the death with him. Suddenly, an officer ran into the room to make a report. "General, our forces that were attacking the hospital were suddenly met with an extremely powerful army of armored soldiers." "Armored soldiers? Who are they?" Robert asked. "It seems that they're the armored battalion working directly under Caspian. I didn't expect Caspian to send his beloved armored soldiers as reinforcement to the hospital. Is he not worried that I can attack Riverside Villa right now?" Robert smiled. Robert finally remembered that the armored battalion was Caspian's private army that he had personally chosen and trained. Caspian has 60,000 men in his armored battalion. Around 50,000 of them still remain by the Riverside Villa, the officer explained. "I see. We've sent 20,000 of our men to take down the hospital. It'll be just right for them to test Caspian's armored battalion in battle." Robert had always been curious about how powerful the armored battalion could be. "Our advantage isn't big despite the difference in numbers. If we send out some more reinforcements, we can definitely wipe out the 10,000 armored soldiers right away." Chapter 583 Stealth Operation. "No way. Sending too many troops to the hospital will leave us undefended. Caspian could launch a surprise attack in response," Robert explained. Robert had his own plans in mind and was taking every step with careful consideration. The officer replied, "I've overstepped my boundaries. Sorry, we'll do as you say. General, we'll see if Caspian's armored battalion is as strong as the rumors say. Both of Caspian's sister-in-law and brother-in-law are in our hands, and the current situation is favorable for us. All we have to do now is wait for Caspian to show up. But it's already past midnight, and there's no movement at all. Will Caspian really be coming? I'm sure he will. Or else I'll ruin Amelia and send out the video to the public," Robert explained through clenched teeth. Meanwhile, back at Riverside Villa, Willow had made a pot of tea for Caspian. "Hubby, do you have any plans on rescuing Alicia from the enemy?" Willow asked. "I do, but it's not the time yet," Caspian replied after taking a sip. His fatigue was instantly blown away with a sip of the fragrant tea. "When will be the right time?" Willow asked curiously. "You don't have to worry about this. I have my own plans." He didn't want her to care about the matters of war. "I'm just worried that something might happen to Alicia." Willow couldn't even manage to finish her words. She couldn't help but worry that her brother and sister would be killed by Robert. "Don't worry. They're safe right now. And I'll definitely rescue them. Go back and get some sleep," Caspian answered calmly. "Okay. I believe you, honey," I'll be going back to bed now. Willow noticed that Caspian sounded serious and decided not to continue disturbing him. Caspian wasn't simply just her husband at this moment. He was fulfilling his duty as the Diatoranian God of War and as the chief commander of the current war. Okay, Caspian replied as he nodded his head. Caspian received a call from Benjamin right after Willow returned to the bedroom. Caspian, Phoenix Vanguard is ready to go. They're awaiting your orders. Very well. Send them to Southlake City and to meet me at Riverside Villa. Sure thing. Meanwhile, back at the Southlake Hospital, the armored battalion was engaged in a bloody battle with the enemy's elites. The enemy may be Robert's hand-picked elites, but the armored soldiers had accompanied Caspian through hundreds of battles. The armored soldiers were all eternal grandmasters. With their powers combined with Sylvia's remaining troops, the Diatoran forces quickly regained the upper hand. The battle lasted for around an hour, and the enemy troops had lost half of their men. They began to realize that they may be losing the battle, and began to retreat from the battlefield. Caspian decided to leave the armored soldiers at Southlake Hospital to bolster its defenses and relegated them to Sylvia's command. The medical staff were all relieved with the reinforcements providing safer defenses. They could continue their work on treating the wounded without any worries. At 3:00 a.m., dozens of tanks arrived outside of Riverside Villa. A group of imposing and well-armed female soldiers came out of the vehicles. Macy, who was standing guard outside the house, was elated when she saw their arrival. The female soldiers were all members of Phoenix Vanguard. The soldiers all shouted in unison, "All of Phoenix Vanguard is present. Captain, please give us your orders." "You must all be tired after rushing over. Just take it easy for now," Macy replied. The members of Phoenix Vanguard instantly loosened up and gathered around Macy. "I've missed you so much, Captain." "Me too. Don't tell me you've forgotten about us after following Lord Caspian around for so long." "You seem prettier than before, Captain." The female soldiers casually chatted with each other. "What are you guys talking about? I've been missing all of you very much. And this time, we can finally do our job," Macy explained. "Captain, is there something important going on for us to be summoned so urgently?" one of the soldiers asked. "The details will be explained by Lord Caspian himself." "What? Is Lord Caspian giving us his direct orders?" "That's right. It was Lord Caspian himself who ordered for your urgent arrival," Macy explained while nodding her head. "Even Lord Caspian himself is on the front lines. This mission must be of grave importance." The rest of the team members were all similarly surprised by the news. "Yes. The current mission will also be dangerous, so I want all of you to be mentally prepared for what's to come. We're honored to have Lord Caspian himself commanding us in battle. We're not afraid, no matter how menacing of a mission it is," one of the soldiers shouted. "I'll be going in to report to Lord Caspian right now. You girls can have a rest in the meantime," Macy explained before turning around to enter the house. Caspian was sitting in the living room and noticed Macy's arrival. "Is Phoenix Vanguard here?" "Yes, Lord Caspian." "You already knew?" Macy was surprised. "The tanks were so loud that I could hear the noise a mile away." "When shall we begin our mission, Lord Caspian?" "No need to hurry. I'm still waiting for Task Force Rose to return with their report since we don't have the latest news on Robert's forces. You'll be given the mission directives once I've confirmed the details," Caspian explained, and took a sip of tea. "I understand. I hope that Task Force Rose returns with good news. I have no doubts about their abilities. All right, you may leave now." Caspian didn't want to be alone with Macy. He realized that Willow would surely be jealous if she knew that Macy managed to hold a longer conversation with him than she did. "Yes, sir." Macy nodded her head and left. Meanwhile, the Valesian elites who were defeated by the armored battalion retreated back to Robert. During their retreat, a dozen women dressed in Valesian military uniforms appeared from the shadows and blended into the bulk of the troops. They were actually Laina and the rest of Task Force Rose in disguise. Laina had come up with the idea in order to fulfill the mission given to her by Caspian. The Valesian soldiers were busy retreating and didn't notice Laina's team blending in with them. Laina and her team soon followed the army back to the Hudson residence. Robert was furious when he learned of his elite's defeat. His elite troops were no match for the armored battalion, and some of them had even tossed away their weapons during the retreat. How is this possible? Caspian's armored battalion has just rushed back to Southlake City from West Eredlands. They haven't gotten any rest for the entire day. They should be exhausted. And you're telling me that my elites couldn't even match them in combat? Robert furiously asked. Chapter 584 Three Gods of War. General, we may be elites as well, But Caspian's armored soldiers have undergone special training. It's only natural that we can't defeat them," one of the officers explained. "You're all useless. You've all brought shame upon Videsia. You've all brought shame onto my name. The armored battalion is Caspian's private army, and you guys are mine. You've all also followed me to battle every time. Why did you lose so badly?" Robert was furious. "There's another reason for the defeat. We." "Shut your mouth. Don't try and come up with excuses for your failure. Our enemy troops were exhausted after traveling long distances, and you still lost. In the end, you're still weaker than them." "I failed you, General. I'll humbly accept any punishment you see fit." The officer kneeled down in front of Robert. "Forget it. But there had better not be a second time. Make preparations for the next battle." Robert didn't want to punish his own men at a time when he needed them the most. "Yes, sir." The officer let out a sigh of relief as he left. Laina and the rest of Task Force Rose blended into the Videsian troops and began to scout for information around the Hudson residence. Meanwhile, Alicia, who had been unconscious for a few hours, finally woke up. Henry, on the other hand, was still knocked out on the ground. "Henry, are you okay?" Alika shouted as soon as she noticed the still unconscious Henry. She shouted a few more times, but Henry never responded. "Don't scare me like this, Henry. Wake up!" Alicia shouted as she vigorously shook Henry's body. Henry slowly opened his eyes. "Are we dead? Where are we?" Henry asked in a daze. He vaguely remembered being severely beaten up by Videsian troops and thought that he had already passed away. "What are you talking about? We're still alive, and we're still inside the Hudson residence. Are you all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine. My body still hurts. I thought I got beaten to death by the Videsians just now," Henry replied as he sat up on the ground. "Are you okay?" Alicia asked. "It's just a little injury. I'm fine. Just what were you thinking? Why would you defect to the Videsians? Are you stupid?" Alicia became furious. "I just wanted to make sure our family is safe. I believed Richard's words because I wanted the best outcome for our family." "You're stupid. Do you think the Videsians would be so kind-hearted? They're here to invade Diatoran. The first thing they'll do is kill you. Just look at that Robert guy's face." Alicia continued, "Even if the Videsians truly wanted to help us, our family doesn't need their help. We stewards have been living in Diatoran for generations. We absolutely can't do something that will betray our country. Our family's reputation will be in shambles if other people learn about this. I was wrong. I finally realized after what happened today. Our lives never mattered to the Videsians. I've changed my mind. I won't defect to Videsia anymore. It's a good thing you only had the idea of doing so, and hadn't yet done anything unforgivable. It's not too late to come back." "I understand now, Alicia. As long as we can get out of here alive, I promise to turn over a new leaf. But now that Robert has locked us up, getting out of here seems..." Henry became depressed. Videsian troops were stationed everywhere. Escaping would be nigh impossible. "Don't worry. Caspian will be coming to save us. We just need to wait for him patiently. We've always caused trouble for Caspian. Do you think he'll really come to our rescue?" Henry felt that Caspian wouldn't actually come and rescue the two of them. "Relax. Caspian will definitely come for us." "Why are you so sure, Alicia?" Robert uploaded the videos of our torture onto the internet and declared war with Caspian. "That's why I believe Caspian will definitely come to save us." "I still don't get it. Robert declaring war with Caspian has nothing to do with us, though." Henry was confused. "Of course. It has something to do with us. We're Willow's siblings, so we're technically part of Caspian's family. If we were to be killed by the Videsians, Caspian would suffer a lot of damage to his reputation as the Diatoranian God of War. I understand now. Caspian has to save us in order to defend his name. He'll be slandered as a coward if he leaves us in the enemy's hands. We just have to wait for him patiently. I'm still worried that Caspian might not be able to get us out of here. Robert must have already placed ambushes around us since he's the one who declared war. I don't think Caspian will actually risk his own safety to tread enemy grounds just to save us." "You're right. But waiting for him to save us is all we can do now." Alicia became a little uncertain after listening to Henry. She recalled all the misdeeds she had done ever since Caspian had married Willow. She had even tried to intoxicate Willow and offer her up to another man. Alicia was uncertain if Caspian would even come to save Henry and herself. Victor, the general of Astronia, was looking for a place to rest after arriving in Southlake City. He had chosen to stay in the Archer residence. The Archer family was surprised as they never expected the war hero of Astronia to stay with them. They welcomed Victor's arrival with open arms. The Archer family even hosted a banquet to entertain Victor. They were jealous when they learned that Robert was staying with the Hudsons. To their surprise, Estronia's general paid a visit the very next day. The Archer family believed that this was an opportunity for them to become the most. Victor decided to stay in the Archer residence after having his fill of wine and food. He wasn't in a rush to go to the battlefield, and instead stayed in his guest room to command the battlefield. While Estronian and Valesian troops had already invaded Southlake City, the bulk of their army remained on the sea. The task of their advanced troops was to map out the terrain of Southlake City as soon as possible before launching the attack to take over the city. Now that Caspian had also entered the fray, it wouldn't be easy to take down Southlake City as they had expected. Caspian remained at Riverside Villa as he commanded his troops. As of right now, 3 different gods of war had gathered in Southlake City. The city had instantly become the center of attention for the entire world. Chapter 585 Battle of the Ages. The sounds of artillery fire rose and fell across Southlake City. It never once stopped throughout the night. At 6:00 a.m., an intelligence officer rushed into Riverside Villa. He had brought a very important piece of intel to Caspian. Caspian picked up the documents and realized that it was the intel map of the Hudson residence. He was elated over receiving the report. He could finally decide on the next plan of action after receiving the intel on Robert's army. Well done, Task Force Rose. I'll have to reward Laina appropriately once the war is over. Caspian smiled. He pulled out his satellite phone to give Benjamin a call after the officer left the room. Benjamin had been waiting for updates for the entire night. Caspian, any news? Benjamin asked. Task Force Rose has finished their investigation on Robert's troops. That's great news. Task Force Rose lives up to their name. It's time for us to take action now that we have a grasp on the enemy's current lineup. It's best if we can deal with Robert right here and now, so that all of Vadesia has to retreat. Of course. When will we begin? Benjamin asked. Let's do it after nightfall, which will be 12 hours from now. Very well. I'll send you a copy of the intel map around the Hudson residence as well. Once nightfall arrives, we'll launch long-range guided missiles from South Eredlands toward Robert's army for a preemptive strike. Of course. Benjamin was excited. One more thing. We'll launch our newly developed hurricane missiles toward our enemies in the southern seas and blow them to smithereens. Caspian. But Caspian, hurricane missiles are way too powerful. Using them will definitely destroy all our enemies in one go. But what if it causes protests from other countries? Estronia and Vadesia invaded our land and killed our people. We don't have to reason with animals. Of course, I understand. I'll do as you say. Caspian? Benjamin knew that he wouldn't possibly be able to sway Caspian's decision. A big battle is upon us. Notify the soldiers in South Eredlands to send 150,000 troops to Southlake City at 4:00 p.m. Make sure that they're ready for combat by nightfall, Caspian ordered. Caspian hung up and then immediately shouted for Macy. How can I help, Lord Caspian? Macy answered and yawned. She had been staying all night guarding the vicinity. Upon entering the room, she also noticed that Caspian had similarly stayed up all night. I need you to bring Phoenix Vanguard to rescue the hostages in the Hudson residence tonight. We're ready whenever, Macy answered excitedly. She had been waiting for such news for some time. The rescue operation is just one part of it. You have another more important mission. What is it? Our true objective is to kill Robert. The rest of the Vadesian troops will become a scattered mess once we kill him. I understand. Phoenix Vanguard will not fail you. This mission is of grave importance, so I'll be personally leading you in battle. Caspian noticed that the time was right for him to lay out his full plans. What? You'll be going as well, Lord Caspian? Macy was surprised. That's right. Robert is a powerful general in his own right. He won't be an easy target like the rest of his troops. I'll be joining you all, just in case. But Lord Caspian, you're supposed to be the chief commander of this war. What will happen to Diatoran if something happens to you? Save your breath, Macy. Do you know why I only decided to tell you the full plan now? It's because I don't want to hear John or Benjamin telling me to sit around to be safe like what you're doing now. I've already decided. But Lord Caspian, they're genuinely worried about your safety as well. This is too dangerous. You shouldn't go. Robert is also a god of war. His strength is above even that of supreme grandmasters. I'd like to have a clash with him. That's precisely why you shouldn't go. I heard that he specializes in blades. Macy also knew about how powerful Robert was. I have a diatanium dagger myself. It'd be the perfect test for my weapon. Macy realized that she should stop trying to convince Caspian. She knew Caspian well enough that he would never change his mind once he had made the decision. "I'll protect you, Lord Caspian," Macy shouted. "Just focus on completing your mission. You don't have to worry about me. I'll be fighting Robert one-on-one. If I can defeat him, then we'll have defeated the entirety of Vedezia's troops." Macy was excitedly looking forward to witnessing the battle between Caspian and Robert. Both of them were hailed as gods of war. Caspian's true strength was unfathomable. Rumors had it that he had been an ultimate supreme grandmaster for a very long time. "There's still Victor even if we manage to kill Robert. We aren't beating all of our enemies just yet," Macy complained with a frown. The current situation in Southlake City was not optimistic, to say the least. "I have my own plans. You don't have to worry about these matters." "I understand. Your name will be known across the world once you defeat Robert and Victor. You must keep everything I told you a secret. I won't forgive you if anyone else learns about this." "Yes, sir." Macy knew about the importance of secrecy for such a grand operation. The leaking of such confidential information would be abysmal. Suddenly, Willow entered the living room after waking up from her sleep. She slightly frowned upon seeing both Caspian and Macy standing around the living room early in the morning. "You're up early, honey," Caspian greeted her. "I've gotten used to waking early for work. I hope I didn't disturb your meeting." Willow had been waiting for Caspian all night, only to find him alone with Macy in the living room when she woke up. She was not pleased. "You didn't disturb anything. I was only talking to Macy about our next operation," Caspian explained, as he quickly realized that Willow was jealous. He felt helpless over the fact that Willow appeared right after he had just finished issuing his orders to Macy. "I'll be taking my leave, Lord Caspian," Macy explained, and left after noticing that her presence wasn't welcome. "Have you been staying up until now?" Willow asked. "Yeah, I needed to command the troops. They've been fighting in the city the entire time." "You must be tired, hubby. Why don't you have a rest in the bedroom?" Willow understood that Caspian and Macy were just discussing official business and decided not to pursue it further. She felt that she should be more mature as the wife of the Diatoranian God of War. Sylvia, too, had always been by Caspian's side. Willow realized that she shouldn't worry too much about it. "You're right. I should take a quick nap." Caspian hadn't slept for a long time and was feeling sleepy. He also had to prepare for the battle tonight. He stood up and walked over to the bedroom. Willow followed right behind him and quietly closed the door. Chapter 586 Willow's Intentions. Caspian entered the bedroom and was about to lie down on the bed. "Wait a moment." Willow stopped him. "What's wrong? You've been running all around the country without any sleep. Why don't you take a shower and put on a change of clothes? You'll feel much better," Willow sheepishly replied. Willow was right, as Caspian had gone from South Airlands to West Airlands and back. His clothes were dirty after the journey. "All right, I'll take a hot shower, then." Caspian nodded his head. He had also been wanting to take a proper rest. There was an important battle waiting for him at night. Caspian went into the bathroom to freshen up. Willow became excited as she watched him enter the bathroom. The reason she advised him to take a shower before bed was because she wanted to spend some alone time together. The couple hadn't seen each other for a while due to Caspian being out of the house for the war efforts. Willow wanted to stay with Caspian for a little more if given the chance. She had no idea how many more battles Caspian would have to face. She figured that they wouldn't be noticed if she kept her voice down and locked the doors and windows. Willow had heard that men would always be energetic early in the morning. She was jealous when she woke up to find Caspian and Macy alone in the living room despite not showing it on the surface. Willow finally realized the possibility of danger. The danger that other women would snatch Caspian away from her. Willow realized that Zoe was right in the fact that having a child would be the only way to secure a man's heart. She decided that she had to make haste in creating a new life with Caspian. Caspian shouted from inside the bathroom, interrupting her thoughts. "Willow, can you get me a change of clothes? I forgot to bring it with me." Caspian was only thinking of taking a shower before going to bed and forgot to bring along a change of clothes with him into the bathroom. "Okay. Give me a moment," Willow replied. She then opened the closet to look for his clothes. She retrieved a set of clothes and walked toward the bathroom door. "Open the door." "All right, but don't look." Even though they were a married couple, it was still embarrassing to be seen naked while taking a shower. Caspian suddenly realized that he had not taken a shower together with Willow. "What are you talking about? Why would I try to sneak a peek at you? Besides, I've already seen your body plenty of times." "Geez," Willow complained. Caspian realized that Willow was right. There were no more secrets between the two of them. Caspian slowly pushed the bathroom door open. Willow was welcomed with the sight of a majestic body. It had only been a few days since they last saw each other. But Willow was extremely excited, as if it was her first time witnessing his body again. Caspian took his clothes and closed the door. He already noticed that Willow had been eyeing his body, but he decided not to expose her. Willow sat down on the bed while her heart raced. She didn't know why, but her heart would get restless every time she finally reunited with Caspian after a period of time apart. It was as if Caspian's body had an alluring and irresistible charm to it. Willow's face gradually turned red. "I'm going out for a moment, Willow," Caspian said as he came out of the bathroom. "Why? Aren't you going to sleep? Why are you going out now?" "I need to make arrangements for my troops before I rest." Caspian couldn't just go to bed whenever he wished as the chief commander. Southlake City was still in the middle of a war right now. After all, he had to go through the arrangements for his troops one last time, or he wouldn't be able to rest properly. "Okay, don't stay outside for too long," Willow replied. Caspian nodded his head and left the bedroom. He went out of the house and walked toward the armored battalion. "I'll be taking a rest for a few hours. You may handle any non-important issues of your own volition, and you may look for me right away if any major issue arises." "Yes, sir," the leader of the armored battalion answered. "This is the intel map of the enemy troops at the Hudson residence. Send a copy of it to Benjamin for him to make preparations," Caspian explained as he brought out the intel map from Laina. "Yes, sir." One of the senior officers of the armored battalion reached out to take the intel map from Caspian. "There will be a bloody battle awaiting us tonight. You may all take it easy and rest up for now," Caspian ordered. "Yes, sir," the entire armored battalion shouted in unison. Caspian finished issuing his orders and returned to the bedroom. The intel map made by Laina would soon be sent toward South Aridlands. The command center in South Aridlands received the intel map and immediately notified Benjamin to take a look. Benjamin then began to plan out his troops and prepared ample artillery trucks for the operation at nightfall. He also relayed Caspian's orders to launch the hurricane missiles at 9:00 p.m. to eliminate the enemy troops on the sea. He then ordered the Diatoranian forces near the sea to immediately retreat to safety, as the area of effect of the hurricane missiles was just too massive. Caspian finally returned to the bedroom and lay down on the bed. "Are you going to sleep right away?" Willow asked. "Of course." Caspian was utterly exhausted and couldn't think of anything else. Shouldn't we be doing something else before going to bed?" "Like," Willow sheepishly explained. Robert and Victor had similarly stayed up all night. Robert commanded his troops to begin the attack on Southlake City. Caspian had also arranged reinforcements to bolster their defenses. Both the east and south areas of Southlake City had been reduced to nothing but a battleground. Robert and Victor never expected the Diatoranian troops to stand their ground despite their overwhelming offense. It would be impossible for them to further expand their current occupied area. Robert was exhausted after overlooking the battlefield for the entire night. He had also decided to take a rest before resuming command. Meanwhile, in Robert's room inside the Hudson residence, a conversation was taking place. "General, we've waited the entire night, but there's no movement at all. Is Caspian really coming?" one of the senior officers asked. They had remained on high alert throughout the night while awaiting Caspian's arrival, only to be met with nothing. It was daybreak now. "Relax. We still have other plans even if Caspian isn't coming. I'm going to enjoy myself toying with Alicia tonight while live streaming it. I don't believe Caspian will still kick back and sit around by then." "Yes, sir. I'm tired, so I'm going to sleep. The rest of you, stand guard outside," Robert ordered. "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, back in Riverside Villa, Willow was squirming around on the bed. She was unable to finish her words. She felt that it was awkward for her to always initiate intimacy between the two. "We can do some exercises." Willow hesitated for a while before finally finishing her sentence. Chapter 587 War is Coming. It had only been a minute or two, but Caspian was no longer awake. "Hubby? Hubby?" Willow tried calling out to him, but Caspian didn't even respond. He had been utterly exhausted and immediately drifted off to sleep upon closing his eyes. Caspian had been traversing across the country to defeat enemy troops throughout recent days without pause. He had only slept for a mere few hours throughout the days. He could finally catch up on sleep now. With the armored battalion stationed outside of the house, he wasn't worried about anything happening to him. Caspian may be the Diatoranian God of War, but he was still made of flesh and blood. He required ample rest to function. Willow had no other choice as she watched Caspian fall asleep. She decided it was best to leave him to properly rest for a couple of hours. She quietly opened the bedroom door and left. Meanwhile, Zoe had also walked into the living room. "You're up early, Willow." "I woke up at 6 today." "Where's Caspian?" Zoe asked. "He just fell asleep." "What? Why is he falling asleep early in the morning?" "Could it be? Have the two of you been going at it until now? You gotta take care of your body." Zoe covered her mouth in shock. "Enough nonsense. Caspian stayed up all night commanding his troops. That's why he only went to bed just now." Willow was blushing after listening to Zoe's assumptions. Southlake City became peaceful in the morning. Everyone was tired after an entire night of battles. Caspian slept all the way until noon. He rubbed his eyes after waking up, only to find an empty bedroom. He vaguely remembered that Willow had been asking him to do something before he fell asleep. Caspian tidied up the bed and left the bedroom. "Hubby, it's still early. Why not sleep for a while longer?" Willow asked after noticing he came out of the bedroom. 6 hours is more than enough for me. I still need to get back to the battlefield and resume command." The very next moment, a panicking officer rushed into the house. "Lord Caspian, I had assumed you were still resting." The officer was surprised to find Caspian already awake as he was about to call for him. "What happened?" "Lord Caspian, Commander Desmond has just requested reinforcements after Astronia launched an attack on the south of the city." "What's the situation over there right now?" Caspian asked. Commander Desmond remarked that his troops won't be able to hold on much longer. "Relay my orders. Send 10,000 of my armored soldiers as reinforcements to Desmond," Caspian ordered. "Yes, sir," the officer answered and left the room. The armored soldiers were ready for battle after getting a good night's rest. Only 40,000 armored soldiers remained by Riverside Villa. "Now that you've moved another 10,000 of your armored soldiers away, what's going to happen if the enemy suddenly attacks us?" "Hubby," Willow asked. "Willow, you don't have to worry about the war. I'll be able to handle it." "Alright, I was just worried. The troops at the south of the city need our help, and deploying the armored soldiers is the only choice. 40,000 of them is enough to defend our house." Willow nodded her head and didn't ask any more questions. 10,000 armored soldiers soon arrived at the south of Southlake City to assist Desmond's troops. The Diatoran forces were reinvigorated after their reinforcements arrived. It was now 4:00 p.m. Benjamin had sent out 150,000 men toward Southlake City as per Caspian's orders. It would take around 2 hours for the soldiers to reach Southlake City from South Aridlands. Caspian had ordered their early arrival in order to not delay the battle happening at nightfall. Guided missiles were also prepared, and had already locked onto Robert's army. The battle would begin at nightfall. The immensely powerful hurricane missiles were locked in and ready for launch to eradicate the enemy forces on the sea. Diatoran's maritime forces were called to retreat out of the area of effect. They fired a few missiles every now and then, in order to avoid causing suspicion for the enemy forces. It would be bad if they noticed that something wasn't right. 150,000 soldiers were en route to Southlake City via armored vehicles and tanks. Robert and Victor soon received intel on Diatoran's troops' movements. The two of them got into contact through a phone call. "Robert, what do you think of South Aridlands suddenly sending reinforcements to Southlake City?" Victor asked. "I believe Caspian is preparing to take over Southlake City, and he needs reinforcements to do so. We've been sitting around for 24 hours now, and we still haven't managed to take down Southlake City. The main bulk of our army won't be able to advance if we don't manage to conquer this city," Victor explained. "I know, but we're dealing with the Diatoranian God of War here. Taking down Southlake City won't be as easy as we expect. Our chances of winning will only be slimmer once their reinforcements arrive. Why not just launch the attack now and take over the city immediately?" Victor suggested. "It's a bad idea. Our losses will be immense if our plan doesn't work out. It's too risky. It's normal to suffer losses at war. We should team up and deal with the Diatoran forces in Southlake City so that we can move our troops at sea into Diatoran. We can then set up base here at Southlake City and continue our invasion from here. Don't be rash, Victor. I know you want to deal with this matter as soon as possible. But listen, I have a plan. We can minimize our losses and take down Southlake City, and then Diatoran itself in the shortest time possible." "Oh? Tell me about it." "First of all, we just need to kill Caspian," Robert smugly explained. "Caspian is the Diatoranian God of War, the strongest in Diatoran. I heard that his true strength is unfathomable. I'm afraid it won't be as easy as you claim to be." I have Caspian's sister-in-law as my hostage to lure Caspian out in the open while we plant an ambush. You've not thought this through, have you? Do you really think Caspian will risk his own life for some random woman? Victor was in disbelief. Chapter 588, Robert's plan. It seems that you're misunderstanding what I meant. Caspian is the Diatoranian God of War. Yes? That means that he has a reputation to uphold as a legend within his own troops. His reputation will be severely damaged if he were to sit idly by and ignore the hostage in our hands, Robert explained. Caspian can always send his men to rescue the hostages instead of showing up himself. What then? Victor asked. Don't worry, I have plans to make him appear in the flesh. If we can't kill Caspian tonight, then we'll just have to launch a full offensive tomorrow morning. Alright then, just give me a call if anything comes up. I will kill Caspian the moment he shows up here. Once Diatoran loses their beloved God of War, the rest of the troops will surely lose all their morale and no longer continue fighting. Once the opportunity arises, we can take over Southlake City and then the entire Diatoran itself, Robert explained. Do I need to remind you that Caspian has not suffered a single loss ever since he became known as the Diatoranian God of War? I know. But you should have some confidence in yourself as well. We're both similarly hailed as gods of war. Robert thought that he was on the same level as Caspian. Victor felt that Robert was being too arrogant and decided to help tone down his attitude to avoid causing any mistakes. I'm just worried that your ego might cause you to make mistakes, especially during such a crucial moment. You should know better. Of course, that's enough. I'm going to begin my planning now. Robert quickly dismissed Victor. Robert hung up the call and immediately called his closest officers. I'm sure you all know of the current situation in Southlake City. We've been attacking for 2 days and we've made no progress. We need to take down Southlake City as soon as possible, so that the bulk of our army at sea can make it onto land, Robert shouted. General, now that the Diatoranian God of War himself is personally present in Southlake City, taking down the city in a short time will be extremely difficult, one of the senior officers explained. Of course, I know that, and that's why we're now going for the head. We waited the entire night, but Caspian never appeared. What can we do? Relax. Caspian will surely show himself, Robert reassured his men. Why are you so sure? General, I'll be live streaming a session with Alicia tonight. I don't believe that Caspian will still remain a coward once he sees the stream. We'll do as you say, General, the officers answered in unison. One more thing, I need a shift of position for my troops around the Hudson residence, Robert ordered. We've already positioned our troops to guarantee Caspian's death once he shows up. Why make changes all of a sudden? The senior officer was confused. Don't you forget that we're in enemy territory. What if their special agents have already infiltrated our ranks and sent intel of our troops back to their command center? Switch up all positions of our defenses at 8:00 p.m. tonight. I'll also begin the live stream at the same time, Robert ordered. Yes, sir, the crowd answered in unison. It was now 8:00 p.m. The night had fallen. 150,000 men from Southlake Aridlands had already arrived near Riverside Villa. Caspian soon ordered the reinforcements to set up camp beside the river, as the streets near Riverside Villa couldn't accommodate such a huge number of troops. All preparations for war were complete. Within the next hour, the guided missiles would be launched toward the troops stationed around the Hudson residence at a moment's notice. Caspian would then begin the battle by leading the charge with his armored battalion. He called over all of the generals for a meeting to plan out the operation's details. We have less than an hour left before our full offensive. Notify Laina and her team to retreat immediately, Caspian ordered. Yes, sir. One of the officers left the room to contact Laina immediately. Laina soon received the orders and was about to retreat with the rest of her team members. Right as she was about to leave, she realized that the troops stationed around the Hudson residence began to move. She was both surprised and puzzled that the enemy troops were suddenly changing their defensive positionings at such a crucial time. Captain Laina, the enemy troops are currently shifting their positions. Should we still retreat now? One of the team members asked. We don't have much time left until the operation begins. We need to notify Lord Caspian immediately that our intel is now outdated, Laina calmly replied. We can delay our retreat. We'll wait for the enemy troops to finish moving and send the updated intel map back to Lord Caspian. Yeah, we should still have time to do so. In the event that we fail, it'll greatly impact Lord Caspian's next moves. Lord Caspian aims to kill Robert right here. We can't afford to make any mistakes, Laina explained. We got it. For Lord Caspian's sake, We have to send out the updated intel map in time no matter what. Alright, everyone. Return to your positions, Laina ordered. Yes, madam! The members of Task Force Rose answered in unison. Meanwhile, in the Hudson residence, the family hosted another banquet for Robert and his closest officers tonight. They finished dinner at around 9:00 p.m. An officer soon entered the room to make a report. General Valez, our troops have finished shifting their positions. Very well. Now, I need everyone to remain on high alert. Tonight's the night when Caspian will finally show up, Robert confidently declared. Yes, sir. Bring me Alicia and Henry. Robert smiled as it was time for the live stream. What are you standing around for? Bring that bitch, Alicia, and her brother over here now, Grant shouted at his domestic helpers. Yes, sir. The helpers immediately rushed over to the room where Alida and Henry were locked up. The siblings were starved for the entire day and had no strength to even respond to the commotion. They were both startled when a bunch of people rushed into their room. What do you want? Alicia was horrified. Shut your mouth and come with us. The Hudson family's helpers were visibly annoyed. The siblings became anxious as they wondered what was happening. They wondered if Robert had decided to execute them. Before they could finish their thoughts, the helpers had already brought them out of the room. Robert smiled deviously as Alicia was brought before him. Miss Alicia, what do you want? Just kill me and be done with it. Alicia had already lost all hope of survival. She would rather just be killed right then and there than suffer even more humiliation by Robert. Alicia had already abandoned all hope after Caspian never showed up to rescue her after an entire day. She assumed that Caspian must be holding a grudge against her after all the misdeeds she had done, and decided not to rescue her and her brother. Alicia had no complaints as she knew that she had brought this upon herself. Do you think you have the right to decide your own death? I won't give you the easy way out. I'll toy with you and show you a fate worse than death, Robert viciously declared. Chapter 589 Found by Enemy Agents. Alicia was frozen with fear as she could only imagine what Robert would do to humiliate her this time. Bring Alicia out and hang her on the gates, Robert ordered. Yes, sir. The Valesian soldiers immediately responded. What do you want with her? Come at me instead, Henry angrily shouted. Bring him along as well, Robert ordered. The soldiers brought the siblings out of the house. The Hudsons watched the scene unfold from the side without any remorse. Alicia and Henry were then tied up and hung on top of the main entrance to the house. Robert and his closest officers then walked out of the house. The Hudsons quietly followed behind them. We'll have to teach both of them a lesson with this iron whip over here while we live stream the entire process. We'll show everyone in Diatoranian how we punish Caspian's brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Robert laughed out loud. Yes, sir. The Valesian soldiers held the iron whip in hand and began to lash out at the siblings. A few other soldiers had set up the live broadcast of the torture. Laina and the rest of Task Force Rose had finished compiling the latest intel map. They were about to retreat when they saw the Stewart siblings being tied up and beaten on display. Captain Laina, should we interfere? One of the horrified team members asked. We're out of time. We need to send the updated intel map to Lord Caspian right away, Laina explained. Robert's right in front of us. We can take the opportunity to kill him. Absolutely not. We're completely surrounded by his soldiers. We won't make it out alive if we fail. And we can't take such a risk before we send the new intel map over. Lord Caspian needs to be updated on the newest enemy positions or his plan may be thrown into disarray, Laina calmly explained. I guess we should leave now. Be careful. Make sure no one sees you when you make your retreat. If anything happens, we'll have to disperse in every direction to divert their attention. Anyone who makes it out will have to notify Lord Caspian of the new intel map. The Valesian troops were focused on Alicia and Henry. No one noticed the members of Task Force Rose retreating. The members of Task Force Rose found an abandoned house, and they began preparations to deliver the updated intel map to Caspian. Work faster! Laina was racing against time to send out the intel map before the attacks began. Yes, madam. The rest of Task Force Rose answered in unison. A commotion could be heard from outside the house before they managed to send out the updated intel map. Laina took a look outside and noticed a bunch of strangely dressed people approaching the house. Shit, they're enemy agents. Have we sent out the updated map yet? Laina impatiently asked. She already figured out who those people were at a glance. Not yet, Captain Laina. The signal here is too unstable. Make it quick, Laina replied while reaching for her handgun. She had brought only 8 other members with her for the stealth operation. while the enemy agents outside the house amounted to 30 men. There was a huge disparity in strength between the two parties. Laina wasn't afraid of meeting her end, but she wanted to make sure the updated intel map was at least sent out to Caspian. "I got this, Captain!" The rest of the members of Task Force Rose were trying their best as well. The newest intel was crucial to the upcoming battle. They needed to get the intel sent back to Caspian, even if it meant sacrificing themselves. "Quick! Their agents are inside that abandoned house. Catch them!" the leader of the enemy agents shouted. The man was none other than Kenzie himself. Kenzie had been patrolling the Hudson residence with his men and quickly noticed the erratic behavior of the members of Task Force Rose. He then called for his men to track down the infiltrating agents. Laina could hear the shouts clearly from within the house. She knew that her team was in grave danger and decided to open fire at the enemy. A rapid burst of gunfire rang out across the house. A few Valesian agents screamed out in pain and crumbled onto the ground after being shot. "Get behind cover," Kenzie shouted. The Valesian agents quickly hid out of sight. "Now!" Kenzie ordered. The Valesian agents reappeared with their crosshairs aimed at Laina. Laina had to duck back behind cover as the enemy fire was too overwhelming for her to even take a peek. "How is it? Has the intel been sent over yet?" Laina asked. "Almost," a member of Task Force Rose replied. Kenzie led his men and continued to sneak up onto the house. "The enemy agents are here. I need all of you to retreat and continue sending the intel map over to Lord Caspian." "I'll buy you time," Laina ordered. Making sure the intel was sent back to Caspian was of the utmost priority. "We can't possibly leave you behind. Captain Laina, let's go. Listen to me. Someone must pass on the new intel map no matter what. Lord Caspian must be protected. There's only about 30 enemy agents on our backs. We can just deal with them together. Valesian troops are everywhere, and gunshots will only alert the rest of their troops. We may be able to deal with their agents right here, but we won't make it out if the rest of the troops were to come at us. You guys must leave now. I'll buy you time. We need to send out the updated intel map before 9:00 p.m., Laina explained. Laina had no time to even think about any other options. "We'll fight with you until the end, Captain. Only one of us needs to go." All the members of Task Force Rose were not able to leave Laina behind alone. "Shut the hell up and listen to my orders. Get out of the house through the window." Laina was furious. She didn't have the time to argue with the rest of her teammates. "Captain Laina." The members of Task Force Rose burst into tears as they were moved by Laina's sacrifice. Leaving now might be the last time they could see Laina ever again. "What are you crying for? Retreat immediately. Do not bring shame to Task Force Rose. Retreat!" Laina shouted. She never planned to leave this place alive, as the mission would still be successful as long as Caspian received the updated intel map. "Best of luck, Captain. We'll see you again. Promise." The remaining members of Task Force Rose reluctantly said their goodbyes. Kenzie led the charge with the rest of his men following behind him. Laina raised her handgun and began a gunfight with the enemy agents. A few more enemy agents fell to the ground. "Kill them!" The rest of the members of Task Force Rose were currently very emotional. They understood the importance of the mission and realized they could no longer delay their actions further. Their only option left was to retreat. Chapter 590, Laina is surrounded. The members of Task Force Rose returned fire as they retreated. Some of the enemy agents were caught off guard and were gunned down. "Kill them all! Don't let any of them escape!" Kenzie shouted. Laina then rushed out of cover before the Valesian agents could react. She aimed at Kenzie and his men and opened fire. Her only mission now was to cover the retreat of her fellow members. Kenzie was stunned to find Laina opening fire alone while her team members were going their separate ways. He raised his handgun and aimed at Laina alone. The other agents were also solely focused on Laina. Laina had already achieved her mission of delaying the enemies. The other members of Task Force Rose noticed that Laina was in danger when they turned back to open fire on Kenzie and his men. A few more Valesian agents dropped dead on the floor. Half of the Valesian agents had been killed, and now only a dozen of them remain. Kenzie began to panic as he never expected that Laina and her team would be so powerful. The members of Task Force Rose were elated as they planned to eradicate Kenzie's men right then and there. But they had to quickly give up on their plan at the appearance of the rest of the Valesian troops. They had to change back to their original plan to retreat. "Retreat! We need to get the intel back to Lord Caspian." Everyone already came to terms with the mission as they retreated without Laina. "Stop them!" Kenzie shouted with fervor as reinforcements were starting to come to his aid. Laina resumed fire at Kenzie and his men. One of the bullets grazed Kenzie's ear. He was enraged as the other members of Task Force Rose were slipping away from his grasp. They were too far to be seen, and he directed his full attention back to Laina alone. Laina noticed that all the enemies were focused solely on her, and had already come to terms with her own death. What mattered was that the rest of Task Force Rose could make it out alive. Laina continued to open fire, and every shot from her gun managed to kill an enemy. Kenzie only had 5 men remaining by his side. The next moment, Laina was shot in her left shoulder. She shrugged off the pain and continued to open fire at her enemies. The pain may not have affected her, but her injury had inevitably lowered her accuracy. Kenzie and his men decided to take cover after realizing just how powerful Laina was. They didn't dare to rush toward their target just yet, as they could always wait for reinforcements to arrive. Laina watched as the rest of Task Force Rose finally disappeared from her sight. She felt as if a heavy burden was lifted off of her shoulders. Her sacrifice here would be worth it as long as the intel made its way back to Caspian. The Valesian troops slowly surrounded her. Laina noticed the encirclement and retreated back inside the abandoned house. Kenzie and his men remained behind cover as they were afraid of being the next target of Laina's expert gunmanship. Any mistake, and they could end up being shot. Laina retreated into a room while her shoulder was bleeding profusely. She realized that she couldn't just hide here forever, or she would just bleed to death. She decided to make a break for it instead of sitting and waiting for the end to come. Laina made her decision and smashed the side window to jump out of it. She went on to retreat from the opposite direction of the rest of Task Force Rose. The crisp sound of glass breaking was also heard by Kenzie and his men. They carefully peeked from their covers to see what had happened. They quickly noticed that a figure was running away from the house. "Shit! She's running away! Mr. Kenzie, should we chase after her?" one of the Valesian agents asked. "She won't be getting away in her sorry state. We'll wait for the reinforcements to arrive before capturing her." Kenzie no longer wanted to take any risks. It would be game over if Laina managed to land a shot on him. The shot earlier that grazed his ear instilled fear in his heart. 30 seconds later, thousands of troops joined the fray. "What were those gunshots just now?" one of the soldiers asked. "We ran into Diatoranian special agents and engaged in combat," Kenzie answered. "What? Where are they now?" "They've split into 2 directions. One made her way south, while 7 others escaped north. We should chase after them," Kenzie explained. "I see. Then we'll split into 2 groups as well. We can't afford to let them get away." Thousands of troops soon chased toward both directions. Kenzie followed the troops south to chase after Laina. Meanwhile, back at the Hudson residence's entrance, Robert's men were still torturing the Stewart siblings with their iron whips while broadcasting the horrors online. Alicia and Henry were completely covered in blood and were no longer recognizable. The Hudsons remained at the side as they watched everything unfold before them. The rest of the Stewarts taking refuge in Garthram watched the livestream from their phones. They were all horrified as they watched Alicia and Henry completely covered in blood. It was especially terrifying for their parents, Donald and Melinda. "Any more, and Alicia and Henry will be dead," Melinda cried out loud. "The Hudsons are bastards. They're just standing there and watching," Marilyn complained through clenched teeth. "Carl, you told me that Caspian would definitely rescue Alicia and Henry. Where is he now? Why hasn't he saved them yet? Did Caspian lie to us?" Donald had no choice but to ask Carl for answers. "It was Willow who told me that Caspian would rescue them. I don't know the details either." Carl was similarly disgusted by the torture that Alicia and Henry were going through. "Any more and they're going to die. Carl, please. You need to ask Willow for help." Melinda began to panic. "All right, I'll give her a call." Carl then pulled out his phone to make a call to Willow. Willow and Zoe were holed up in their room as Caspian was busy with a meeting with his troops in the living room. Willow's phone soon started ringing. She picked up the phone to find that it was from her father. She answered without any hesitation. "Dad, are you okay?" Willow asked.
"Willow, didn't you say that Caspian would rescue Alicia and Henry?"
"Why hasn't he made a move?" Carl asked. "Don't worry. Caspian promised that he'd save them. I just don't know about the details. Both Alicia and Henry have been tortured beyond recognition. They're going to die at this rate if Caspian doesn't save them right away." "What?" Willow was surprised. "Robert has tied up Alicia and Henry on the top of the Hudson residence's gate. He's torturing them with an iron whip while broadcasting the entire process online," Carl explained. "I'll tell Caspian about it right away." "Okay. Any longer and Alicia and Henry may no longer be with us. I'm hanging up now. Dad, I'll give you another call later." Willow hung up the call and ran out of the bedroom.